On this day of Yom Kippur, we take time now to commit ourselves to investing in our homeland, to investing in Israel. Whether through Israel Bonds, JNF, the Masorti Movement, AIPAC, AJC, Hadassah, or another organization of your choice, investing in Israel is vital. Here in Cincinnati, we celebrate Israel and strive to bolster the connections between our students and Israel. Our foundation and federation give incredible gifts so that all our students can go to trips to Israel. This is really such an incredible blessing, and we should be proud of our Cincinnati Jewish community's tremendous commitment to Israel. At Adath Israel, our Israel Engagement Committee is hard at work, and there will be numerous Israel programs throughout this year. Please join us for these wonderful programs. One of these amazing programs will be right after services today at 1 p.m. in the chapel. Barb Miller, the chair of the Israel Engagement Committee, will lead a panel discussion of members of the Israel Committee and their families, where they will discuss their connection with Israel. Please join us at 1 p.m. to hear their perspectives. At this time, we are delighted to listen to the words of Kadosh as she lovingly shares about her Israel experience from this past summer. Eden, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Good morning, everyone. Over the summer, I went to Israel with USY. We traveled throughout the country over the course of 5 weeks. We started off in Jerusalem, and we spent a week in the north, went to Tel Aviv, and even Eilat. I learned how to be more independent and more religious. I learned how to properly bench and how to help lead services. I gained so much new knowledge about Judaism and Israel, and I gained lifelong friends. My experience was so memorable. Every Shabbat on Friday night, we would go to a park and find a nice open spot, do Kabbalat Shabbat, and local families or just people passing by would stop and watch us or join us and pray. One day while we were doing so, my group Rosh, or
Let's see if it's maybe better. Yeah, go ahead.
One day while we were doing so, my group Rosh, or our leader, mentioned to us that we wouldn't be able to do something like this at home without having security and doing a lot of research on the area we were in. That struck me because these Kabbalat Shabbats were my favorite part of every week. How could something so fun and harmless be so taboo here? After our first Shabbat, we walked a few blocks from our hostel to Ben Yehuda Street. And before I left for this trip of a lifetime, I was told that I would see everyone I knew there. And you guessed it, I ran into Camp Livingston. It was the perfect way to end my first week because I had a little taste of home in Ben Yehuda Street of all places. After our first week ended, we did an archaeological dig. I found a bowl. It was the highlight of my trip. Okay, that was an exaggeration, but it was really cool considering it was from the time of the Maccabees. We went spelunking, where I discovered I was claustrophobic. Yet somehow I kept going back into the caves. Everything was just so surreal, and I needed to embrace all parts of it. Towards the end of our second week, we went to the West Bank. We met some settlers. One was Israeli and one was Palestinian. They each told us their stories and how they were able to work together like they do now. Each of them gave their own personal experiences regarding the other group of people, and it sounded so similar to each other, it changed a lot of our views. Both of these men worked to bring people from each of their communities together and show them that neither people would do the other harm. It was beautiful. During my third week, we spent a night in the Negev. We were taught how to cook our own dinner before sunset and how to prepare to sleep under the stars. We did a bonding program, and we were taught how to find certain stars in the sky no matter where we were in the world. To wrap up our time there, we sang some classic USY slow rock songs by our campfire. I believe it was our fourth week when we hiked Ein Gedi. I saw the most beautiful waterfalls and even got a little lost. Because I got lost, though, I was able to see a little more of the park than originally planned. The water was perfect, and the ruach of Ein Gedi was contagious. I felt so right to be there. We then went to a lot where I thought I was going to melt. In a lot, we went to the ice mall and got to shop around and see Israeli pop culture. We had a party boat along the Red Sea, and we were able to see all the lights from the boardwalk of Eilat and the bordering countries. I remember turning to the person next to me and telling them that our view at that moment was a once-in-a-lifetime view. And then, some point while we were there, we rode donkeys, and mine rode me into a tree. His name was Cookies and Cream. He was a special donkey. And then, to start off our last week, we went and slept in Bedouin tents. While staying there, we rode camels. I named mine Giggles because he made everyone laugh. I drank the best tea I've ever had, drank the strongest coffee I've ever had, and listened to a Bedouin woman tell us her life story. That day, we woke up at 4 a.m. after staying all night out in tents, and we hiked Masada. I davened my morning shachri as the sun was rising. I've never felt more thankful to be somewhere than I did that morning. Immediately after Masada, we went to the Dead Sea, when it was 103 degrees outside, and I'm pretty sure this time I did melt. This past summer was almost like a fever dream. I continuously had to ask my friends if everything that had happened was real or not. I've never had such an amazing experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I got to experience Israeli culture head-on and was learning something new daily. My trip brought me closer to Israel mentally, physically, emotionally, and especially spiritually. I felt at home there, like I had been waiting all this time, and I finally found my place to call home. And now I get to live with Lior, who's one of Cincinnati's Chaverim this year. She brings in new and fun insights about Israel into every conversation that we have. Being with her makes my connection to Israel continuously grow. I'm so happy to have someone to share my experiences with and to share theirs with me. I can't wait to go back.
Thank you again, Eden, so much. We appreciate you sharing your experience and your words with us, and God willing, it should be always an inspiration, these trips that our students go on and really experience Israel up close and make these lifelong connections. It's so important, and I'm so grateful that in our synagogue we really invest in our homeland, we invest in Israel. At this time, we're going to turn to page 290